Welcome to the final session of this historic 6th biennial CRCP. I'm Ava Thompson, and it is my distinct pleasure to chair this session featuring leaders in African and Caribbean psychology. CANPA has a very long relationship with PAPU. We traveled to South Africa in 2012, 1 year after the inaugural CRCP, with a mighty large contingent from the region. It was the first time the International Congress, well, first and only time that the Congress had been held on the continent. It was an amazing success for all of us, not just us from Africa or the Caribbean, but for the global community for psychology. We've continued that relationship, and we attended the first PAPU Congress that was held in 2017. And at that Congress, CANPA and PAPU signed an MOU for scientific collaboration in the development of psychology in our respective spaces, but also to advance global psychology. The events of our world have limited to a large extent much of what we had envisioned in the last 8 years. But this symposium or panel provides us an opportunity to discuss some of the visions of our psychologies, not only regional, but global psychology. And the title of this panel is PAPU-CANPA Partnership, Role in Transforming Global Psychology. So please let me introduce our panelists. We have, of course, Dr. Donna Maria Maynard, who also was in South Africa for the signing of that MOU. She also attended that inaugural Congress in 2012. We have Dr. Andrew Zamani, who is the current president of PAPU and past president of the Nigerian Psychological Association. Of course, we have our very own Khadija Khan, who is president of CANPA. And last, but by no means least, we have Saths Cooper, Dr. Saths Cooper, who is not only past president of CISA, but he's the first president of PAPU, and as you heard yesterday, he's the first person of African descent to be president of the International Union of Psychological Science. So please join me in welcoming our distinguished panelists. So let me just repeat the title of the panel, and then I will give you a little information about the structure of the panel session. So again, the title of the panel is PAPU-CANPA Partnership, Role in Transforming Global Psychology. So for this panel, each of our panelists will give 3 minutes opening statements. They will come to the mic to give 3 minutes opening statement on the meaning of this title for them. And following that opening, their respective opening statements, I will ask perhaps one question, and depending on how long it takes them to answer, I might be able to add others. But the most important part of this panel is an opportunity for you, the audience, to engage with the panelists. We have allocated initially 25 minutes for questions from the audience. We have been told that we need to finish 10 minutes early, so we've made adjustments to their opening statements, but we would like definitely to ensure that we have questions from the audience. So to facilitate the exchange, what we would like to do when we get to that stage of the session is invite individuals with questions to come to the front so that we can ensure that your questions are heard by all in attendance, as well as those who might be watching us online. So without further ado, I will invite Donna Maria Maynard to provide her 3-minute opening statement.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. And you'll have to bear with me for 1 minute because I'm trying to this paperless mode. And I've put together, you have to remind me, is that, oh yeah, it's just an opening statement, I forgot. Okay, so the signing the MOU with PAPU back in the year that Ava said was very significant. For me, I'm just going to tell you from my heart what it means to me in terms of being born and raised in England and trained in England and then coming to the Caribbean and thinking initially that you know it all because you've been trained at what you think are the best universities probably in the world, and then you come here and you realize that the tools that you have come with do not fit well with the people that you're working with. And you know when you're young, you're kind of hard-headed, so it takes a bit long to realize that. With time, I think, and with meeting the leadership of CANPA and really hearing what's going on and getting a better understanding as well as working with people in the Caribbean, I've realized that we need to look at really recognizing that everything is not Freud and Jung and so forth, but we need to look and find out what is best for ourselves and our people. So in that effort at the University of the West Indies, what we've been doing is that we've worked towards opening up our psychology program and not just sticking to what we think will get students into graduate programs, but working with students and developing courses, changing up our curriculum that really speaks to what their reality, what they need to know, and how best they can understand themselves and the people around them. So I think that this really is a big step in terms of moving towards decolonizing psychology. We recognize that we have to engage different approaches. We use a lot of reflection. For instance, we encourage them to critique the traditional Eurocentric theories and so forth. And on that point, I'm going to end, but thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Dr. Maynard has gotten us off to a brilliant start, not just with ideas, but also with her use of time. So I have her having an additional minute. But again, thank you so much for the comments about the acculturation that is required. Many of us in our Caribbean spaces have talked about the fact that when we return from our studies abroad, we have to have this period of reacculturation to our spaces, reacculturation to our people, reacculturation to ourselves in order to be effective psychologists in the Caribbean. So again, thank you so very much for that, Donna, because it highlights that our work is not just one of global psychology as a profession. It is about psychologists as individuals, as humans who have to continue undergoing the change to make us better agents of change in our spaces. So now I invite Dr. Zamani.
I bring you greetings from the Pan-African Psychology Union, and I want to appreciate the opportunity to participate in, is it the 6th? Yes, CRCP. Incidentally, I was not in South Africa when the MOU between CANPA and PAPU was signed. I was denied visa by the South African authorities, and so I missed that wonderful conference. But I was there in spirit because SADS ensured that he fed me all the way, the much that he could, to ensure that I wasn't depressed for missing the event. I want to take a different approach, maybe not to say what it means to me now, because I know during further interventions or engagements, I will be able to say so. But I want to give a context. You know, in Africa, our sense of history is advised by past experiences, our current realities, and the demand of posterity in terms of the legacies that we leave for future generations. We thrive on the mentality that the individual lives among people. The individual is in the community. So, because of this background, we cherish partnerships and collaborations with persons that are of like minds. Where we are forced into relationships with people that are not of like minds, we are not scared. We are not afraid because the group is there for us. The community is there for us. We approach partnerships for friendship. We approach partnerships for mutual support, one for wealth creation and resource development. But we are also very, very conscious of the fact that there is a demand, a compelling demand for mutual accountability. And this is where our sense of morality and ethics lie. Psychology in Africa, therefore, in spite of its Euro-American origins, is beginning to find footing in self-assertion and self-identification. I believe very strongly that with this, we in Africa and our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean have a lot to share in what is going to become a renewal of relationship through the signing of a revised MOU.
Thank you, Dr. Zamani, who effectively used Dr. Maynard's minute. But just to say that, thank you for your comments. I don't know if any of you had a reaction to his initial statement about not traveling to South Africa because he was denied a visa. As you know, we in the Caribbean have for years bemoaned the fact that in order to travel within the region, we have to go outside the region. So for me to get here, I had to go north to come back south. And so it helps us appreciate the role of historical factors in the construction of the Caribbean and how those, and the boundaries of nation states in Africa, and how that construction of these nation states continue to affect us, not only in terms of physical travel, but there are so many other components, including our psychological functioning. And it's imperative for us to acknowledge and address those boundaries that are affecting our capacity to achieve our goals for humanity. So now I invite Dr. Khadija Khan.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I'm going to take a gamble here and deviate from what I had planned to say and just go with the flow of the emotions and all the discussions that have been taking place during the week. We are gathered here to discuss how can this partnership, CANPA and PAPU, transform a global psychology. But what does transformation mean? What does that look like? You heard Dr. Thompson mention earlier that some people think transform. When we say that word is validated, it means something's wrong. Do we think something's wrong with our current psychology? Have we even reflected on it? Many of us would have gone through our entire education in psychology learning about the classics: Freud, Jung, Erikson, Skinner, Pavlov. For me as a neuropsychology enthusiast, my hero was Luria, Alexander Luria. He really inspired a lot of my work. I would joke with my students, if there was a poster of Luria, I would have had that up on my wall. But in reflecting, were there no contributions from other countries to classic psychology? And I just want to share with you two quick stories. I was a graduate student on the Mona campus in Jamaica. And at the library, you couldn't go in with your bags, you had to check them in. So I was waiting in a long queue of people to collect their bags, and I just glanced, and on the counter, the Marcus Garvey Society, there's a student group, had a newsletter. So I just picked up one to kill the time and read. And it was commemorating Haitian independence, but it also spoke about, and this was me, a 20-something-year-old, for the first time ever in my life, hearing that the price for Haiti's freedom was the extraction of wealth from France. So they had to pay France a sum that crippled them for centuries. And I remember having some sort of epiphany and existential crisis in one, like, oh my gosh, do you all know this? Is anybody? And I was like, how did I go as a whole fully grown person never knowing that? When I did high school, many of us who've come through that post-colonial British education system, we all did history forms 1 to 3. I know more about post-World War II European history than I know about Caribbean history. Thankfully, the curricula has since changed. But we need to think about transformation not only as criticism, but as a reflection, as a review, as part of our reflective and reflexive practice as a discipline. Interestingly, the literature on decolonization suggests that compared to other disciplines, psychology has been slow. Slow to embrace, slow to react, slow to do any kind of transformation. Another analogy I like is slow like molasses. You ever try to pour molasses? You have to stand there and wait for it to happen. So let's speed up that process of some honest reflection, some honest reflexivity, and let's see where it takes us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khan, who started us with the question, which is important for each of us. What is this transformation that we're talking about? But also the how. Dr. Maynard gave us some ideas about what they're doing in terms of the curriculum, but Dr. Khan has asked the broader question about moving beyond the criticism. We know that the criticisms have been there for a very long time. So the question must be asked, why is psychology moving so very slowly? What are the factors that are maintaining the status quo and undermining the change for psychology that really serves, that represents, first of all, and then serves all of humanity? So now, Dr. Satz Cooper.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mine is quite simple. I just want to say, Dr. Khan, that on the 10th of June this year, it was the 85th anniversary of the death of Marcus Josiah Garvey in London, having been born in Jamaica in 1887. That tradition of a search for true humanity is something that has impacted me from my teenage years. And so for me, the issue is quite simple. We are one humanity. We all possess the same biological makeup. But everywhere, we remain in our own prisons, physical or psychological, and determined by a horrific history of slavery, colonization, and more recently, imperialist extraction and control. Our psychologies, and I'm using the word deliberately because there are multiple interpretations of psychology. So when Mao said, "Let 1,000 flowers bloom," he had no idea about psychology allowing a few thousand flowers to bloom. And it is as it should be, because psychology as an applied discipline is very recent. First, the shell shock of that great European war that ended in 1914, and then the Second European War, the First and Second World Wars, resulting in the use of psychology for intelligence and for intervention purposes, particularly for pilots. And then the Boulder Conference, and the rest is history. Psychology is too fragmented, and our associations from the largest, the APA, to the smallest amongst us here and maybe in Lesotho and one or two other countries in Africa. Size should not matter. It's the respect we give to the people who stand out and say, although we are few, we respect ourselves sufficiently to want to create an organization. I know in the International Union for Psychological Science, I confronted a lot of, before me there were mostly American and West European male presidents. And they all said, look at that country, it's so small. It doesn't matter. It's the respect we give to each other that is primary. And the competition is heavy, but what about cooperation and collaboration? Because we are in the service of humanity. And in serving humanity, we achieve what we want to achieve.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cooper. A very important first point is psychology in the business of searching for true humanity. What does that mean? If we were to have that as the mandate that affects our day-to-day functioning as psychologists. In Prague last year, we had a global leadership summit, and one of the things that we talked about was, what is our vision for psychology moving forward? We talked about one psychology, meaning not the psychology that comes from a particular place, because we recognize that all psychologies are indigenous. But how do we combine all of them to represent a psychology of humanity? So one psychology. Because after all, as Seth said, there is one humanity. And as different as we are in terms of our resources, our size, our reality, there is indeed only one future for all of us. So one psychology for one humanity to serve one future. So colleagues, thank you so very much for your opening statements. I will now ask perhaps just one question, and then we will turn the floor over to the audience members to ask their questions. The notion of transforming the discipline can seem radical in a lot of ways. Radical in the sense that it is critical of the fundamental nature of our discipline. And we are actually advocating for disciplinary reform. However, the word radical is value-laden and is not used as an objective process, but rather it is viewed as an extreme or fringe idea with negative connotations. We have also heard that the notion of transforming the discipline is problematic because it suggests that something is wrong with the discipline, deeming anyone who questions the status quo as radical. So my first question to you, perhaps my only one, is how do African and Caribbean psychologists engage colleagues on the need for change in the discipline? And that's for any one of the four. You're coming? Okay.
I'm tempted to ask another question. Who is saying it's radical? Who are we reporting to? Who determines the standards? Probably that's my answer. For me, if being radical means being rebellious, then there's a fundamental problem with that reasoning. I'd rather say that we have reached a point of critical awareness. And this enables us to look inwards, to examine our environment, to understand our contexts, and to be responsive to the issues that we see. It's knowledge generation. Yes, we inherited a Euro-American style of psychology. It is not irrelevant. I'm not sure there's an abuse. I'm not sure there is contempt over that. But it will be tragic that Andrew Zamani, of African descent, goes through his entire career of psychology and is not able to generate knowledge, to develop knowledge that suits his people, that suits his environment. As a matter of fact, it is not even possible, because in Africa, we have different ethnic nomenclatures. And so it's a whole lifetime of limitation if you consider the volume of work that you have to do. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, let us see the advocacy for transforming psychology as a clarion call for us to reshape our ideas, to remodel our thinking, and to be open and to have the courage, to accept alternative views so that we'll better understand our humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that brilliant, profound, thought-provoking response, Dr. Zamani. Dr. Khan?
So the question was why we need to. So
How do you speak about?
how do we engage in that process? I think before we get to the how, I'm going to add a small preface. Is the why. Yes? And I'm going to speak from the Caribbean perspective. When we think about where we are located geographically and our proximity to other countries and our proximity to Africa, seems like a world away geographically. And when we look at our major sources of influence culturally, television, music, fashion, food, what we've been consuming from birth and what has shaped our identities, it's moved us further and further away from our ancestors. Some of you may have copies of the MOU circulating, and that second paragraph. Whereas African populations in large part peopled the Caribbean and share common history. But what mandate does that give us now? Do we see a need? So we have to get the why it is important for us to engage in this process. Because if I think we firmly believe in the why, then the how will follow. So thanks to technology, the how is much better. So we don't have to physically travel, because of course cost and resources and time would have prohibited us, but we can have the exchanges now much more easily through technology, and then we can also find the resources because we know it's important to place this as a priority. So I think, just to re-emphasize that, one of the things, and I'm going to ask you to give me some grace and maybe a shovel of salt when I say this. So we tend in the Caribbean to think that we are more similar to persons perhaps in the United States of America than we are to people in Africa. And why is that? I will never listen to this song, Phil Collins, Take a Good Look at Me Now. Is anyone familiar with that song? I can never listen to that song without seeing the video that played, I think, in the 80s and 90s of starving children from Africa when they were doing that pledge to give support for famine. So they imprinted that image in our minds that Africa, this certain image of Africa that just needed help and needed support and wasn't developed and flourishing and had scholars and civilizations and advancements and technology that we could all be learning from. Yes? So I want us to reflect in the Caribbean, what were these images that we have been getting over the years? And who do we think we need to go and seek out to? As Caribbean people, we often go afar to find opportunities. Have we been thinking about Africa as a source of the place where we can go and find those opportunities to help develop us? I'll stop there.
While we all know that the history of psychology has Wilhelm Wundt in the first laboratory, in 1734, Antonius Guilhelmus Amo Affer, Anton Wilhelm, did the first thesis on the mind, and it was on the impassivity of the human mind, on the absence of sensation in the human mind, dealing with the Descartesian dualism of mind-body. Right? And he was taken as an infant from Ghana and deposited in Holland. And he graced various universities, Halle, Jena, and so on, and was not given recognition until COVID, when the German government named a station after him. But so unaccepted was he that he moved from philosophy, he moved to law, and he moved to medicine, and then decided to leave and go back home. It tells us, the Bible tells us, and other scriptures tell us, there's nothing new under the sun. So most knowledge is available. It's how we interpret that knowledge and apply it to our objective conditions. Of course, we need to be mindful of ourselves in that context, but our patient or client population should be the center of our focus. But all the time, we allow the D.H. Lawrence's words, my education, the voice of my education, telling me something. We go through these rites of passages with theories and so on. I've been trained psychodynamically and I've been through the gamut. And I find that unless you center the person in the context in which you find them, you will lose out. And that is what is required of us, because most of our people are labeled. They don't want to deal with what is still mental health versus physical health. And note, psychiatrists control that space. Nurses control that space. Remember, the nurse tag is black. So it tells you, not the black of my black consciousness and many of you, it tells you it's the lowest level at which you engage. And that stigma is still with us. So many of us, especially men, don't want to come in or be dealt with because they say, I'm not mad, I'm not crazy, so why should I be? And that is a serious issue that we have to deal with, because we are not engaging at the level at which our people out there require us to. And if people don't have a need for psychology, psychology will die. As it is, we are under threat from behavioral economists, all sorts of people, EAP, you name it, who are filling that space. But still we persist, and AI is going to overtake us. So it's time, and if that's radical, so be it. We need to recalibrate and come together. We don't need to agree with everything. In fact, contestation of ideas is important. We cannot accept the world according to Cooper, because it will be false for somebody else. It has to be that reality that our people confront, imperiled by centuries of intergenerational trauma, which has not been dealt with. And if we think some of the symptoms we confront are just recent, think again. There's enough literature telling us that we haven't dealt with our past. The colonizers have, and in 2015, the last payment on reparations to the owners of slavery was done with Rothschild's bank. That should tell us.
Okay. So I'm going to answer what transformation looks like. That's what you want to know, what it looks like. Well, we know transformation is a form of change. We know that change takes long. We're human. That's something that we definitely share as one humanity. We don't like change. So therefore, there's always some sense of resistance. We have different views and so forth. So it takes a while. But change, when we reflect, is often very powerful. It's good, it moves us forward, and transformation for psychology, especially within the Caribbean, rather than simply testing imported theories, I think a transformed psychology takes a very bold step forward. It generates new concepts and models that emerge from the lived experiences of Caribbean people, and these models don't just echo what's already been said in the global north. Instead, they center values and realities that are often overlooked in the mainstream psychology, like interdependence, spirituality, post-colonial identity, and ancestral memory. This isn't just an academic shift, it's a reclaiming of our voice, meaning, and relevance in our own context. My colleagues have shared, and I'm in full support of all that they've said, that we have to recognize that yes, we are one humanity, we can learn from each other. Psychology can become extinct if we don't take it forward. And I leave my comments there. Thank you.
Colleagues, our panelists have said so much for us to digest. I am afraid I don't have time to provide a summary of it because we would really like to hear from you, the audience. So for those of you who have questions, may we ask that you come to this side of the room so that you can come to the mic one at a time to present your question to the panelists.
My name is Omawale Elson, and I'm a Bajan, and I'm coming via University of Maryland Global Campus and Morgan State University, where I'm part-time faculty there. Now, psychology is not going to go extinct because it's a European creation. It serves them. But the question I have and what people don't know is that when Western Europeans were creating trauma all through the world, they were traumatizing themselves. Palafieri talks about it, right? So that, I think we should understand that. We just look at, and that's why it won't get extinct. They need to fix themselves all the time. Now, in terms of Caribbean folks, Frantz Fanon is one of our leaders in this field. So I want to bring him in. And he says we require a new mind, right, in order to fix our neocolonialism, which was my topic here, decolonizing structures or organizational structures. But I think the question for us will be, what is Caribbean psychology, right? I'm married to African American. And it seems that we are talking about America, but we don't talk about African American and the kind of inroads and contributions that African Americans have made in psychology. So there's this separation of how neocolonialism has given us in the Caribbean that distance and suspicion about African Americans. So I would ask us to really engage or to have a separate, a sub-conference that brings these two, right, together, Caribbean and African American scholars, right? Because we're afraid of the word black in the Caribbean. Because when we talk black, we got to talk white and be frightened. We don't want to offend white. So I don't talk around in circles. Eva? We really got to talk directly. I got to learn your sweet language. She talks about it really well, Eva. So I wanted to know how can we bridge that gap, right? Because we have a lot of African Americans, Caribbean scholars who are educated at black schools, universities. So that when one of the things of decolonizing is that when you want to get a partnership, why it is that so naturally you go to a white university. But that is telling you something about how you value white supremacy and how you diminish your own, right? So we really got to get real when we're talking about this. So I just want to mention those. God, 10 seconds. I'm also a speech professor, so the boundaries is also, that's why I was trying to run away, but I got 10 more seconds, right? So in those 10 seconds, I want to really congratulate CANPA in the wonderful work it's been doing, right? Really. And I want to encourage you to continue doing that. So thank you very much. I don't want to talk about that.
Thank you, Omawale, for your comments and your candor. Very much appreciated. I would just add that we do have a relationship with our colleagues in the African American psychologists. We've also published with them, and we are continuing that work. Thank you so much for that comment.
Hello, good afternoon. Oh my gosh. Y'all, I'm short. Okay, my name is Ariane Camille Byron. I am from Atlanta, Georgia, but heritage right here in Christchurch, Barbados, so I'm excited to be home. I had the great pleasure of teaching a pre-conference workshop on self-care, collaboration, and ACT modalities, which I felt just was very impactful throughout the week, and I'm so grateful that the group of people who were in attendance got to start off that way. So my question, as a first-time attendee of this conference, I want to know what the expectations are for myself and my colleagues who have participated today for the next 2 years. When we meet again in another 2 years, what work should we be doing individually and collectively to ensure that what we've learned today makes actual impact within the industries? And I'm very curious about, have you all measured the past impact of meeting at a conference like this and what the outcomes have been in elevating just our partnerships, our collaborations, and overall policy changes from experiencing such a conference as this? So that is my question.
Really excellent question, and I think it echoes some of you who were in the opening ceremony would have heard the Deputy Prime Minister, Cynthia Bradshaw, also ask about the outcome of the collaborations that takes place. And we did take that into consideration as something we have reflected on, all of us who are involved in the organizing aspect of the conference. It's not just about coming here and this week, but what is the after? So we are looking at more tangible ways to follow up on that and to also have them feed into the next conference. And even at the next conference, how do we feature some of that? Where we talk about what collaborations and what the impact has been. So let's have some of the evidence. But we do also know anecdotally that we hear people talk about how many of you only see people at CRCP, and the last time you would have seen them was at the last CRCP. So we do know that we have a very vibrant, healthy, repeat conference attendance. We do know that there have been collaborations and networks formed at this conference. A lot of learning has taken place, but certainly how we can make that a little bit more tangible and maybe put some KPIs in there and then report on them at the next one. So thank you for that.
And we now invite the third audience participant to ask a question.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? My name is Sharon Bethia, and I'm the president of the Association of Black Psychologists Incorporated. And I have a question as we talk about bridging and one psychology. How do we even talk about doing that when you talk about a psychology built on white supremacist assumptions, built on pathologizing blackness and normalizing whiteness, built on ignoring the impact of racism and oppression, lack of cultural competence and no representation, Eurocentric individual, y'all know what I'm talking about. The historical abuse and exploitation of APA to this day, right? And so how do you suggest we bridge that? Love you, Arthur, but a fake apology in 2021 and then dismantling it in 2025. So just my question is, what do you see bridging what? And just to add to that, we have a psychology, maybe that name, that's thousands of years old that's totally ignored.
Thank you. This is my first time at the CANPA conference. I'm very grateful to be here. But my question is, what advice or constructive criticism would you give to those coming from a competitive rather than a collaborative perspective to achieve the transformational goals of what you're talking about?
Good day. I am Frances Boulon from Puerto Rico, and I would like to ask the panel and our community in general, how will we follow up on one of the themes of the conference that highlighted examining our indigenous ancestors? We have been looking into the implications for psychology of that in in Puerto Rico, but I think we need to widen the scope. And I saw the subject mentioned in many presentations, but I think we still have some work to do in that respect.
Thank you. So colleagues, because we're running out of time, I will attempt to summarize the 3 questions and then ask one of the panelists to come and take any one of the questions. So the first question from our sister from ABSI is, what are we talking about with bridging? How do we get to one psychology with such a history of injustices that have not been addressed, as well as the contemporary challenges of psychology? I'm sure I didn't capture the passion with which she spoke, but I think the question is, we still have a lot that we need to deal with historically and in terms of our contemporary reality. So how in the world do we get to one psychology? The second question I think I heard was, how do we engage when we function or work in a competitive setting rather than a collaborative setting? How do we achieve those goals that we've talked about? And the third was, how do we engage on bringing our indigenous knowledge into psychological science? Okay. So panelists? Okay.
I'm just going to use my own experience here and say that if you look, it's unusual and physically impossible to constantly looking backwards. It's impossible to turn your head and look backwards. It's recognizing that. It's recognizing the horror of the past and dealing with it in meaningful ways. Because if we, and for me, I allowed persons who were torturing me to get amnesty because I took a decision that my shoulders are too small to carry that weight. But constantly, you deal with it in interactions with them and us in multiple ways. It's there, ever present, in so many ways. Even when you're in the same community of persons, you will have somebody holding forth for them amongst us. It is about recognizing it and in how we deal with it going forward that we liberate ourselves. And that liberation is part of what has been raised here, a reparative psychology, a liberatory psychology, a psychology that's not to control people and keep them where they're supposed to be, keep them in their place, or dislocate them totally in the kinds of ways that slavery, colonization has happened, and we still deal with that. It's an ever-present reality. The issue of competition, individual versus the group, is a learned one because we've learned that through being in even the land. I mean, how many of us come from spaces where the land was held communally? And now we have realtors, real estate people saying, this is my little patch. So it's a massive psychological and intellectual reality we have to come to in recognizing that the dyadic relationship in psychology, I'm the therapist, you are the patient, has to change. The means of getting there have to be very different, but we learn individual psychology, we learn family therapy, we learn group therapy, and some of us have done community psychology. But how many communities still remain in the societies we are in? Communities have been destroyed. Our role, and I go back to the community psychology theorists. It's to advocate for and restore that common sense of humanity amongst our people and those we interact with, so that the hurt, the anger of the past doesn't interfere in what you're doing. And again in the Bible, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Even if they still do it, we need to find ways to overcome that and move forward.
Colleagues, I am saddened by the fact that we have no more time. We have no more time to continue our conversation, much needed conversation. And it is most fitting that it is at the end of CRCP, just prior to the closing ceremonies. We've heard a lot of information about our scholarship, but this session asks and hopefully has answered some questions as to why all of our individual scholarship matters. I am pleased to tell you, however, that this is being recorded and it will be available on CRCP 2025 YouTube channel. So we are able to revisit this conversation at our leisure and think about the implications for this conversation for how we work in our individual spaces as well as how we work in our community. So thank you very much for that. Please join me now in a rousing round of applause for our panelists for the messages they've shared with us. Thank you, and we will now transition to the closing ceremonies, which will be in this room, so you can stay where you are seated.
1, 2. Good. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. And we're at the end of CRCP 2025, but not the end of our relationships that we've built together, right? So just give yourselves a round of applause for completing the end of this chapter. And we hope to see you for 2027. So my heart is, and our CANPA representatives, our hearts are filled with pride, hope, and joy as we bring a close to this beautiful gathering of psychologists, students, researchers, professionals, community leaders, as we shared, as we participated, as we engaged, as we shared ideas. And we really want to thank everyone and thank you for being so engaged in such a wonderful audience and participants over the last few days that we've had together. And I hope that everyone had fun. If it's your first time to Barbados, welcome. If first time to the Caribbean, welcome. So just to do some housekeeping before we start, just to make sure that the program flows, I'm going to introduce myself. I didn't do that when I started. So I'm Andrea Games Mojas. I am the campus Secretary General, and many of you may have engaged with me via emails, may have seen me moving around, and we're so grateful for your attendance and participation this evening. Also, as soon as we get in, we're going to take some time to offer a tribute to Dr. Guillermo Bernal, our past president of CANPA, but also a champion of CRCP. And that tribute will be presented by Dr. Ishtar Gavaya, our Vice President of CANPA. And we'll also be getting closing remarks from Dr. Mia Amor Jules, Amanda Kelman, and Dr. Donna Maria Maynard, our LOC co-chairs and local organizing committee who made everything possible for us in Barbados, and our local COC chair, Dr. Donna Maria Maynard. Also, our president, Dr. Khatija Khan, will be giving closing remarks, and we'll be getting a reveal this afternoon where the next CRC would be happening in 2027. And then we close and we say our goodbyes, was, as I said, it's not the end of the journey for us. We've all been championed to take back out to our communities, to our countries, such important lessons and knowledge to really empower and to strengthen your practice and to strengthen Caribbean psychology. So I hand you over to Dr. Ishtar Gavaya.
Greetings, colleagues. I have a very significant honor that I've been asked to undertake, which is to give tribute to Dr. Guillermo Bernal, who was our past president, and he was a significant presence in CANPA and in psychology in general, not just Caribbean psychology. And it's made me think a lot about a book that I've been reading called The Grieving Brain, how the science of how we learn from love and loss by Mary Frances O'Connor. I really highly recommend it to everyone. She speaks a lot about all of the work that she's done in terms of understanding why some persons experience complex and complicated grief as they deal with trying to come to terms that the person is not close, not here, not now present. And as I undertake this responsibility, and we were attempting to show a video of Guillermo, because I think when you see somebody, when you actually see them moving, you really get a sense of the person, the individual. If you would like to see Guillermo, I have the video on my computer and would be very happy to share with those of you who are interested. Today, I honor the life, the legacy, and the luminous spirit of our dear friend, colleague, and mentor, Dr. Guillermo Bernal. In doing so, I borrow from a framework he offered us one unforgettable evening at our CANPA Executive Committee meeting in Kingston, Jamaica. Guillermo introduced us then to his own confirmatory factor analysis for rum tasting. As he explained, with that distinctive sparkle in his eyes, there were 5 factors: color, olor, sabor, dolor, and amor. And it is through these that I remember him now. Color, Guillermo said, is about first impressions, how something looks, what it evokes, and whether it invites you in. Guillermo had a presence that was gentle yet grounding. His calm demeanor drew people in, not with fanfare, but with depth. Like the warm amber hue of a finely aged rum, there was a richness to him, not immediately loud, but unmistakably resonant. When he entered a room, you felt something thoughtful, something significant had arrived. Olor. Olor is the scent, the essence. Guillermo's essence was clarity. He had a quality of listening that was rare. He gave his full presence, not rushing to speak, but always considering deeply. Whether in executive committee meetings online, in Guyana, Jamaica, or the DR, or in side conversations that stretched into the evening, he was a person who breathed thoughtfulness. You couldn't leave a conversation with Guillermo unchanged. Sabor. Sabor, of course, is the taste, the richness of the experience. Guillermo's sabor was intellectual excellence blended with heart. As co-chairs of the CANPA Publications Committee, we worked together on a special issue in 2013 that mapped where psychology in the Caribbean stood and where it could go. His sense of what we had already accomplished was firm and clear, and his vision was consistently bold. His commitment to culturally adapted, evidence-based interventions was never abstract. It was about impact, about people, about place. He was a master at walking that emic-etic balance, bringing scientific rigor without ever losing cultural soul. Dolor. Then comes dolor, the pain, that moment when you swallow that rum, the burn. And we feel that now. His absence aches, it burns. We miss his quiet laughter, his brilliant mind, his grounded spiritual presence, often felt in how he spoke about his yoga practice or mindfulness, not as a performance, but as practice. But in this dolor, there is also honor, because we grieve deeply only when someone has mattered deeply. And Guillermo mattered to our field, to our region, to each of us. Amor. Finally, amor, that love. Guillermo's legacy lives in the love that surrounds his memory, in the students he mentored, the researchers he inspired, the colleagues he uplifted. His was a leadership that cultivated rather than dominated. He knew that real transformation requires community, and he offered his heart to that work again and again and again. So today, we lift not just our proverbial rum glasses, but our work, our intentions, and our hopes to Guillermo. May his model of thoughtful presence and deep engagement remain a guide for us. May we continue what he helped build, remembering that the real measure of a life is not in the titles, but in the love, the amor left behind. Gracias, Guillermo. We carry you with us.
We invite Dr. Mia Moore Jules, and after is Dr. Maria Maynard and Amanda Kilman.
So we'll split it. Yeah, let's split it. Yeah. You go first.
All right. As we prepare to bring CRCP 2025 to a close, I want to invite all of us to take a moment to reflect on the past 5 days. Our theme this year, Building Mental Health Resiliencies, Empowering Our Communities, has resonated through every workshop, keynote address, plenary, roundtable, symposium, paper presentation, and conversation. We've seen what's possible when psychologists, educators, researchers, policymakers, and community leaders come together with a shared purpose. We've tackled tough topics from historical trauma to the impacts of AI on our humanity.
My turn. Ready? Okay, hi. So over the past 5 days, we've not only shared evidence and expertise, but we've also challenged ourselves to think more deeply about what resilience truly means in the Caribbean context. Not as a buzzword, but as a lived process, shaped by our histories, our cultures, and the everyday strength of our people. We've also reignited a collective purpose to build mental health systems that are inclusive, culturally grounded, and sustainable for all Caribbean people. But let's be clear, the work does not end here in Barbados. The real impact of this conference will be measured by what we take back to our islands, our institutions, and our neighborhoods, by the partnerships we sustain, by the change we push for long after the applause fades. So, as we leave, I encourage us all to stay bold, stay collaborative, stay committed. Our communities are counting on us, not just to study resilience, but to live it, build it, and protect it. You read the last line.
Thank you for being part of this transformative week. Safe journeys home, and may we meet again, stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever before.
Now we go. And that's Amanda Kelman, right? Quiet entity, but a powerhouse.
Okay, I thought those closing remarks were perfect, so I don't see why I should have to add to them. But what I do want to say is I want to thank each and every one of you for trusting in us to leave your homes, no matter how far away they are, and coming and joining us for these very important meetings that we engaged in to gain a better understanding of psychology and how we can use it to help the Caribbean to enhance mental health resilience, help build those communities, and so forth. It's been a long journey. I have to acknowledge everybody that has been part of that journey. I know I will forget some people, but I am, she said me do a collective thank you. But I do have to call some names, don't kill. At least for the, on the LOC side, and then I'll leave the rest for later. Okay, but in terms of the local organizing committee, you would have just met the co-chairs, which are Mia Jules and Amanda Kelman. Okay, and they were in the background there all the time, working very hard, I can tell you. I don't think there's anything that I can really do or give to them that will equate the amount of work they put into it. But because I'm being told I have to keep the time and everything, I just want to thank you once more. I think I'm going to come back up here for a little bit again later. Not too later.
So my final chance to have words with you this evening, this afternoon. You know, we refer to the CRCP as CANPA's flagship event. And what's a flagship? It's a nautical or military term for the ship at the front of the fleet that's carrying the commanding officer. And I think about that image of ships and how for Caribbean peoples, apart from our indigenous peoples, our first peoples, the rest of us, our ancestors, would have all taken a journey on a ship. And we fast forward to our current day now, to this flagship event, and that term, flagship event, refers to the best or most important thing owned or produced by a particular organization. And I think that's a fitting description for what the CRCP represents for CANPA. To have all of you come from far and wide, from different organizations, countries, backgrounds, contexts, cultures, to convene here for us to share and exchange, network, and collaborate is truly a powerful thing. I hope that you have had a really fulfilling experience. I hope that you have seen the power and potential of Caribbean psychology, that we do have a voice, a role, and a mandate to empower, to continue to network and collaborate. Conferences like these don't just happen. It takes a lot of hard graft behind the scenes. So I do have to single out the very incredibly hardworking LOC who's been working for 2 years to make this happen. I won't call all of the names, we'd be here for a long while. And also we have our conference organizing committee, so all the members of our scientific committee, marketing and publications, finance and fundraising, everybody who had a hand in making it possible, all of our sponsors, all of our allies and supporters. On behalf of CANPA and our executive council, we thank you so much. And finally, my final thank you, please give yourselves a round of applause. It's really endearing to see so I did the last CRCP as, it was online. We haven't seen each other for 7 years. Yeah. And to see so many of you stay back for the closing ceremony. It's the flu is getting the better of me. So now on to some fun, happy things. All week people have been asking, where next? So it's that time of the day. So folks, can I have a drum roll, please? As we announce that the 2027 CRCP will be held in, shout if you know it, Cayman Islands. So I now invite Dr. Shannon Seymour, President of the Cayman Islands Psychological Association, Dr. Mia Jules, President of the Barbados Society of Psychology, to do our symbolic flag exchange, handing over host duties. First, we'll pause for the pictures. And then we exchange. And now it's my pleasure to invite our newest member of CANPA and its newest president, Dr. Shannon Seymour, to address.
Thank you, everybody. I know this has been such an amazing event, and to close with this is so important to us in the Cayman Islands. To my colleague from Atlanta who asked, what do I do next? I attended the 2018 CRCP in Kingston, Jamaica. I was a Canadian and American trained psychologist working in the Cayman Islands for 20 years at that time, and attending the CRCP in 2018 was transformative. And so what I did was I went back to our country, got people together, we invested in decolonizing education for our mental health providers, we formed the Cayman Islands Psychological Association, and I came back this time to the beautiful Barbados with a much larger group of 8 of us, who you would have seen limboing and dancing last night at the cultural night. And so if you are transformed from this experience like I was in 2018, I encourage you to go home, continue to learn, and bring even more people with you to the Cayman Islands to CRCP 2027.
Thank you. Great. Thank you so much, ladies. And I hope you have your markers on your calendar to travel across the Cayman Islands in 2027. So before we close, we just have one presentation from the BSP, and then we bring this closing ceremony to a close.
Yes, so it's a bit of a baton race. Now at this time, one little second. How close are they? Almost there? I would just like to say a few words before I invite Amanda Kelman to just come up. And she's probably going to kill me for this afterwards, but it has to be done. All right, here we go. Are they there yet? Are they there yet? They're there? Wonderful. Let's bring the first one up. Amanda, please come to the fore, right in front of the banner. And Joanne, just go to Amanda. I would like to give this bouquet as a token of great, great appreciation to Miss Amanda Kelman. It was truly an honor serving as co-chair with you. I now understand, this mic gives you the tears, yeah. It was an honor serving as co-chair with you and of the local organizing committee. Your quiet resolve and calming demeanor made this almost 2-year-long journey, though challenging, what the hell? An experience that I will never forget. You are a brilliant mind who made the exceptional look easy. And it was truly an honor and a privilege working alongside you in this process. No? Okay, sorry. All right, I'm going to take over. Now, as I said, there have been many, many hands involved in this process, but there are just some that we have to recognize publicly, especially Kai Morgan. Dr. Kai Morgan, are you there somewhere? Are you hiding? Oh, yeah. Who was our scientific chair extraordinaire. She was shifting and moving and doing what she had to do, and the late night calls and the voice notes. And so we know that you all are traveling, you can't carry anything big and heavy and so forth, but we do want to recognize you publicly. So thank you very much. And then the other person that I think, I shouldn't say that, we know has been dedicated throughout the whole process, has been there with COC from the beginning working on this, is Javila Ho. And Javila, coming up with some brilliant ideas, asking some important questions, and really helping us move forward. We would like to acknowledge your contribution. Thank you. And of course, she's very soft-spoken, and she does her work. She moves around, and she sends the WhatsApps and the emails. But she has really, I don't even know what to say. But Andrea, yeah, we could not have done it without you. Really couldn't have. So thank you. Okay. Last but not least, our president extraordinaire, who decided that she would be co-chair as well, which was a double duty. Khadija and I have a fairly long relationship. I think we met first in Suriname, yes. And I remember we stayed on a day or two afterwards and went into the interior. And I remember telling her how important it is to have a professional association. And yes, I was grooming her. I think we even went into the jacuzzi, right? With Keith LeQuay, who couldn't make it, unfortunately. But she held it together. She held us down. I don't have words
Khadija, please, this is for you, and thank you for everything. On that note, can I officially close, or I'm not the person that's meant to close? Andrew, can I officially close? I'll leave it to you.
Oh my. So we've now officially closed CRCP 2025. So please stand, give yourselves a round of applause. And this is such, and as Cassie just said, right? So we thank you for our partners, our sponsors, and for everyone who's worked hard, right? And Donna has one more thing to say.
Just a reminder, those of you who are going on the tour this afternoon, we're meeting in the lobby at 1:50. There's still 6 places remaining. So 1:50 today, 10 to 2 today in the lobby. All right, so everybody's got that. Also, the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. tour still has spaces, and that's a whole day tour tomorrow. It's an excellent tour. I do highly recommend it, and you can make your booking with the lady outside. Thank you.